Well, yes and no. If you're talking about money in general, what academia gets as compared to community, then often the answer is no, it's not equitable, but it's fair. And it's fair because of the work that everybody is doing and what the community brings to the table. But the stipends among community members are the same.
The other that may answer this question is, for example, if we have in an R1 application that I just submitted, there was a subcontract to one of our community partners who was going to train and conduct, basically deliver the education component as part of the grant. And their salaries are equitable. And in that, there was a subcontract. So in many ways, we also have subcontracts with partners that are very equitable because it is whatever their salary is placed as part of the budget. So it is a percent effort of the director, percent effort of a liaison, a community liaison, and 3 community health workers over the 5-year period. And these are salaries of $30,000 to $65,000 a year. So those are taken into consideration in the budget. This is a subcontract, and this example is with Chaz, and Mr. Ricardo Guzman was a co-investigator as well on the study. So in that sense, it depends on the project. It depends on what the scope is about how we go for the equitable salary, but in many ways with the stipends, sometimes those are not, those are oftentimes $3,000 to $5,000 a year, and partners are engaged in perhaps one meeting every 2 months, about one meeting every 2 months, and those meetings range from 1 hour to 2 hours. So those, as Yolanda said, are fair because those are the stipends and the amounts that we have come together to. As partners, we've decided that that's the stipend. Yeah. Yes.
Are there instances where community partners actually submit grant applications versus the university?
Yes.
For example, Chance has its own.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and many of the partners do, and sometimes the health department does, the CHAS does, then other of the partners like Friends of Parkside, DHDC, Detroit Hispanic Development Corporation, Latino Family Services, all engage in their own submission of projects, grants. They may serve as the PI on those. Ricardo Guzman often serves as PI on some of the Reach Detroit partnership work that's focused on diabetes. And in those, we may be listed as co-investigators or we may not be. And then we also partner with them in different ways. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, is that also for like NIH and other types of research funders?
CDC, I know that CDC, yes. NIH, I'm not sure if Mr. Guzman has gone in.
I can address that. With the NIH, the partnership makes a determination about what makes more sense. Should the university be the lead with the subcontracts going to the community organization or vice versa? And it really depends on sort of what the expectation is from the funding announcement, in terms of whether an academic institution would make more sense. The proposal will be stronger, but the partners will determine. And I just wanted to make a comment about the equity. If you're talking about equity between a full professor.
You have to come to the mic.
Equity between, they can't hear you, Robert.
Oh, if you're talking about equity between a full professor's salary at the University of Michigan and an executive director at a small community-based organization salary, no.
No.
And our partnership recognizes that.
Yes.
But I think Melissa very eloquently described how when there are some contracts placed into proposals, that they're getting what they would be, or the people in the subcontract are earning what they would be earning at their organization.
Their salaries, the salaries that are set.
Provided to the organization as a whole, participating on a steering committee or on the board, which, it does not equal somebody's salary, obviously.
Right.
Partial recognition or in recognition for the individual.
as a group and the partners, we review each of the line items in the budget as well. So we are very open about what is going into the budget. Yes, ma'am.
Down to nuts and bolts, since applying for a grant is not very intuitive, and say the community wants to apply, do they get assistance?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. The question was, since for many of these program announcements, they're written for academics or other research, at a research level, do we provide assistance to community partners in writing those? And yes, we do, if needed. But many of our community partners are, up there, and they can very much write a grant and apply for them and are very successful in acquiring them.
So you had a hand up over here.
Yes.
I wanted to express a little bit of frustration here because there are many of us that care about involving communities. But when I answer those questions, who chose the problem in the study, it's almost always the funder. I don't have anything to do with that. I'm usually chasing some grant around and trying to get in that 7% grant. So do I choose it? No, I usually don't. Who designed the intervention? Generally, I wrote it, but I wrote it to somebody else's, and it's usually the funder.
And are you a community member, academic, or can you?
Well, I'm an academic that works in, I'm a public health person who works in the field.
Okay.
Running studies and writing grants. And so it's a very frustrating sort of mix of things, but I would say most of them are driven by the funders and our need to actually be able to do research. And the problem that I have is often, how do I reconcile that, which is a real thing that I have to deal with every day, with my desire to
work with the community?
Because I just say, have I made those decisions? I'd have to say most of the time, no, I haven't.
Right. And I think these questions are important to ask. And before I answer your question, I want to emphasize that a lot of the literature that is published related to community-based participatory research, I would say use these questions to evaluate that research and really get to, are they truly conducting CBPR? And in looking at who chose the problem to be studied, we choose the problem together. And one advantage, and for me as a junior academic, what was an advantage was that the URC had been there. It was a long-standing organization and partnership. I didn't have to form this partnership, and that would be very difficult to do. And would take time, would take a lot of money as well to develop that infrastructure to do that. But there are partners and others who are interested in conducting and looking at issues that we're interested in as academics, as public health practitioners. So who chose the problem to be studied? We choose it together. We truly do. And then who designed the intervention and policy change? We do not necessarily follow the dollar in that we are able to identify what program announcements and mechanisms allow us to conduct the research that we would like to conduct. Many times we have gone to foundations with proposals of this is what the community has identified as a problem and the priority, and we will work together to find those funds. So it is a struggle, it's difficult, and it does take time, but we have been very lucky in identifying mechanisms and program announcements that do allow us to conduct the research in the topic and area that we'd like. But we're not a nonprofit.
Yeah, and if I could just add to that, because I hear your frustration in terms of having to chase the dollar, but if you find yourself in a particular community, even chasing the dollar, is there that you find partnerships, that you locate those who want to work with you. So from a certain point on, you can involve them in things. And when you develop the partnership, one of the key things is to figure out that everyone who's around the table, what their focuses are, what they would like to see in their community. And so you're not just chasing the dollar aimlessly, you then can start looking at dollars that fit into each partner organization. And then that way it becomes more of a partnership and it becomes more equitable, and you're making decisions as a group as opposed to just when you see money available.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to clarify that a little bit too. I mean, for us, for instance, we run antenatal care programs in the community, and we use research research is one of the ways to provide those services. So when I say we're chasing the funds, we're not chasing them, you know, as
Okay,
we
haphazardly,
would do
right.
anything. But often what happens is we don't have the choices. It's very frustrating that we don't have the choices to bring the kind of work that even we feel is important to the community, let alone our partners in the community.